Hello and welcome to what feels like attempt Godzillion and 2 to do this review. I mean, seriously, those guys who do YouTube's out of doors, I don't know how you do it, I really don't. This is the review for Neal Asher, The Gabble and Other Stories, a marvelous little short story collection that I used to tide me along the 2,000 kilometre journey from the Gold Coast up to Cairns. Read short stories along the way. Great cover. Really like. I think this is meant to be some interpretation of the Gabble duck. The Gabble duck being a central feature. It survived the journey in reasonably good condition, not too different from what it was. So I am serious when I say I've been trying to record this review for like a week or something. I've got no idea when I'm going to be able to upload it. But first of all, I tried to give you a beautiful tropical background of Machem Beach, but between the noise of the ocean and the noise of the wind and the palm fronds rattling over the top like maracas, you couldn't hear anything, I couldn't hear myself, you wouldn't have been able to. So I moved to this lovely, serene tropical park, full of huge Moreton Bay figs with all the aerial roots, gorgeous, until I was halfway through and a herd of screaming children came through. That was the end of that. Most recently, I have tried to do it in the Pioneer Cemetery, which is a beautiful tourist attraction, which I love, on McLeod Street in Cairns. I've never seen other tourists there. This time, there were tourists. And then there was another time my phone battery died. Anyway, we finally got there. I might actually finish this one because you get the uninspiring view of a motel room. 10 stories, and as well as the stories, the Gabble Duck has the really cool addition of having little author's notes for each of the story at the back. Now, I really liked that. It added to my reading experience, and I liked it better than having them at the beginning of the story, which the current collection I'm doing right now has. I think read the story, enjoy the story for what it is, and later, if you want more, you can go to the back and find out a bit more about it. Okay, story number 1. Also, it's got all the titles in one place, so I don't need to write them down. I'm really happy about that. Now, story number 1. 5 out of 5 stars for Softly Spoke the Gabble Duck. I really love this one. Apparently, who's a Macmillan story? I don't know. The Gabble Duck is an alien species that Neal Asher has apparently invented, and it features in a number of stories in this collection. It's a great alien species I don't think I've ever encountered before. I don't remember it being in either of the 2 books, or at least not featuring prominently in the 2 other Neal Ashers that I've read. But story number 1 isn't primarily about the Gabble Duck. The Gabble Duck is basically the end note. So this story is about a tour operator on an alien planet. He accepts a contract to take a rich guy's sister and his PA all out hunting. They say they're hunting for a Gabble Duck, which our protagonist doesn't believe is on the planet. He's wrong. Spoiler, he's wrong. But the planet itself is what was really amazing about this. One of the things I love about Neal Asher is how many different types of science he contributes in his science fiction. It's not all astrophysics and maths and engineering. Here he's got this wild ecology where almost everything is vertical. So I imagine something like limestone caverns and cliffs where everything lives vertically in vines and is climbing. So rich guy gets out there. Him and his sister start off by shooting a sentient species which is going to get them in serious trouble if they're found out. There's a lot of the tents themselves have to be fastened to the cliff, and so do the sleeping bags because they're semi-vertical as well. It's a great concept. I think any reader, I don't think it's a spoiler to say this because I think any reader is going to realize early on that rich guy is going to get sick of hunting animals and is going to start hunting our protagonist. But the story of how he does that, the tech is really interesting, the adventure is really exciting, and again, that ecology, wonderful. The Gabble Duck coming in as an end. It doesn't feel like a Deus Ex Machina. It feels like a really well-constructed story, so 5 out of 5 stars for that one. Story 2 is Putrefactors. Again, I love Asher's unique combination of extensive biology, all the sciences that aren't the main sciences, and then he throws in ultraviolence, and so you've got that cyberpunky element. Violence and ecology, that's a bridge that not too many sci-fi writers that I have read have bridged really well, and he does it excellently. So you've got so much in there. Again, 5 out of 5 stars for story number 2, Putrefactors. I'm gonna just say this is the earliest story in this collection. It was first published in 1999, and just one of the concepts in that I really like. This planet has had pollinators evolution. So you've got the flowers and you've got the insects. So normally on our ecology, the insects tend to be the pollinator for the flower, but here the flower and the insect have combined. So you've got this mobile pollinator that is both flower and insect. I really like that concept. Story number 3 is Garp and Geronimid. So I enjoyed this one. I think it's the first time I really had a story of Asher's that went into his reification notion. So another person might call that revivication. Basically someone dies, only instead of their personality exiting with the death, their personality is saved. And it can be put into one of a number of things that can be put into basically a cybernetic creature, of which you see more and more of those in the later stories, but it can be put back into the original body, which is dying. So basically you've got this intelligence that's living in its original body, which is slowly rotting away. Now this is a concept that I'm pretty sure we saw in Skinner. We saw it somewhere else, but here it was done differently. You've got an investigator on this planet. I can't remember exactly what he's doing there, but basically it's an introduction to another wild ecological theory by Asher. You've got this complex victim drug baron concept, and I'm not going to say too much about it because it all fits together with, you've got these trees, and then you've got these eels that come out of it, and then you've got a poison that is also an addictive drug. But the addictive drug can be made more extreme by doing something truly horrible that you should read about in this story, because I really did thoroughly enjoy Garp and Geronimid. Perhaps not quite as much as a couple of the other ones. I gave this one 4.5 out of 5 stars because in places, despite the wild concepts that I loved, it did seem to drag at times. So 4 out of 5 stars for number 3. Story number 4 was The Sea of Death. Good title. He's got good titles. So this is the story that apparently broke Neal Asher into the short story market, if I understand this author's note. I really like the way he used archaeology in this story. Again, he uses these sciences that are real sciences and really interesting, but which most science fiction writers just don't bother with very much. So you had archaeologists of aliens and alien structures. The protagonist is viewing these. I think he's come to visit for some reason, and I can't remember what it was. Story was great, really enjoyed it, 4 out of 5 stars. These alien structures are built from frozen water. So basically they've made bricks out of water, but because of the temperature of the planet, they serve as well as mortar bricks do on our world. That was a great idea. There was a certain amount of fluffing around, I'm gonna say, that wasn't entirely necessary. Again, I felt that parts of it dragged a little bit more than some of its more exciting stories, but I really like the concepts in it. And here's the odd thing, that is Sea of Death, and story number 5 is called Alien Archaeology. And when I came across that, I thought that maybe stories 4 and 5 had swapped their titles or something, because Alien Archaeology would have worked perfectly well for story number 4 as well. Story number 5, once again, I gave that one 5 out of 5. It was a long story. It was multiple breaks, and it would have been a better story to read continuously through. Which is why I'm going to say this probably isn't the best book to be taking with you on 1,000 kilometre road trip. You want one with shorter stories. That's what I'm planning for the way back from Cairns to Gold Coast, which is going to be fun. I'm going to start that tomorrow. Okay, in Alien Archaeology, story number 5. 5 out of 5 stars. Again, I love the notion of alternative sciences used in his sci-fi. There was a plant in this that I found particularly exciting. The protagonist is on a planet where a lot of the ecology has actually been adapted by previous intelligent species, and one of them is a plant that pulls the elements out of the soil and then presents it in drops. And you have, I don't think she's a protagonist, I think she's just a character, scoops through the sand to bring up a whole handful of reasonably valuable metal extracts. And I like that. It also reminded me a little bit of the plants of West Australia and New Caledonia, which have a much higher tolerance for heavy metals and so forth. So yeah, I like that. Again, ultraviolence, you've got golem technology starting to creep in, and alien intelligence that willingly gave up being intelligent, which is a great concept in this short story collection and comes through more and more. So in the stories from now on, I started to get more of a handle on Asher's universe, which I've got to say I never had before. He's got these 3 primary intelligent alien species that humans and a few other more recent aliens try to investigate, hence the alien archaeology and the learning about the plants where everything's been mutation, and the whole story of the Gabble duck. So you've got these 3 species. One of them is the Caesaurians. I can't remember them off the top of my head. And people are trying to find out their technology and what happened to them. Are they going to come back? All that sort of thing. This short story collection is a great way, I'm going to say, of dipping into Neal Asher's universe. And I've come to realize through reading this that he has a very, very strong universe building that I'm going to say probably extends throughout his books. I've only read 2 of them. Looking forward to reading more. That was a lot, wasn't it? Where am I up to? We've done The Sea of Death. We've done Alien Archaeology. Story number 5, that was 5 out of 5 stars. Story number 6, Encephalous Dreams. Okay. So in this story, the artificial intelligence Geronimid, which we've already encountered in one of the previous ones, appears again, along with one of the artifacts left scattered around the galaxy by a long-dead race called the Caesaurians. CS, who can pronounce CSO? Caesaurians. Who'd likely been mucking around with the technology left by another dead race, the lethal Jane technology. Jane? Does anyone else get shadows of a certain TV series whenever I hear Jane? Probably not. Okay, so Encephalous Dreams, I liked that one again. It was very creepy in its concept, can I say. But I was not wild about the execution of this. So great concept, not so wild execution. I'd probably give that 3 out of 5. You've got a criminal, for good and sufficient reasons, but he's still a criminal, who is used as a kind of tech incubator to bring one of the other old alien species back under controlled conditions. So this criminal, and I'm on criminal's side here, I'm team criminal. When you read it, you probably will be as well. Is used as a patsy by the AI. You get a humongous view of this world building. It's a wild world that Asher has created. So that was great. Didn't love the pacing. Not sure about the overall ending. So 3 out of 5 for enjoyment, but probably 5 out of 5, honestly, for the concept. Okay. Story number 7 is Snow in the Desert, and I absolutely love this one. Asher thinks it's an odd one, written a long time ago and subsequently rewritten a lot. I've just got to say that if if this is his example of rewriting a lot, he should do it more of it. It's spectacular. I really enjoyed it. I loved every part of it. I loved the ecology. I loved the desert planet. I loved the way you started with one protagonist doing one thing and then you had another one doing another thing. And I loved this twisty, squirmy way they came together. So yeah, brilliant. You've got golems, you've got cyborgs, you've got elaborate and interesting different value systems happening. it felt very Blade Runner to me. Maybe a bit of the original Blade Runner, a bit more of the new Blade Runner, but very Blade Runner-y. And I'm going to say one thing, I don't think Asher writes love stories per se and as such, but Snow in the Desert is the one which to me ends on what is basically the perfect love story end note. You've got our main protagonist, Snow, he's an albino. There's something weird about his genome, which has everyone chasing his genome. Actually, his genome producing testicles. Please don't cancel me, YouTube. But at the end, he's hunted down, he's worried about her, but then they team together with this. He thinks she's a cyborg, but she ends up being a real person who's been put into a machine, as it were. I can't remember if he calls that a cyborg or something else, or an AI. Probably the cyborg. He's got lots of different classifications for all these different artificial, dead, alive, never alive, once again alive. Great concepts, but there's a lot of them. And it's been a while since I finished reading it. At the end, Snow, who's essentially seems to be regenerating and has a level of immortality, says, I'm never going to die. And the cyborg who's been hunting him down says, I'm never going to either. And it's a surprisingly emotional ending for a story that is anything but emotional and is highly violent in the best possible way. Okay, that was Snow in the Desert. Yes, the Blade Runner reminder. Story number 8 is Cloud Apt. This was published only in a defunct magazine called Sci-Fright. And in this one, Asher's playing with the idea of a Dr. Mycelia. He's also got humans with mandibles. He claims he's got a sick mind. I think it's awesome. So you've got, our main protagonist is Simons, whatever. And he's got a mutualistic, parasitic, something else living in his head, which is basically a mycelium, a Dr. Mycelium. So I'm going to guess some kind of Fungidae, Kingdom Fungidae, but an intelligent one. And the two of them together, spy infiltration and hopefully doctor cure for a planet which has been infected. Again, you've got this amazing aquatic style planet, but apparently a bubble came in which was infected. It's infected everyone. And the Cloud Apt is because all the people here basically adapted. It seems like they've been in some way mutated or had DNA merged with theirs from species that are native to that planet. And because it's almost a hive mind, because Simons, who is our protagonist, is here, they all can detect him, whether it's odor or telepathic or whatever, they can detect him as an invader. And the infection wants to keep itself safe from him. So, great ending. I felt the pacing of the story didn't work too well. I'd probably give that 3 out of 5. Still a great story. Love, again, the unusual sciences, but probably wasn't my favorite in this collection. Story number 9 is Adaptogenic. Adaptogenic. This was an odd little conglomerate of concepts, which I enjoyed, but there was this timeline jumping thing, so I didn't really love it, and in all honesty, I don't really remember it too well. Adaptogenic, what happened in it? Yeah. So it did have a good notion in terms of oceanic or aquatic. Okay, for people who are into auctions and auctioneers and all that sort of stuff, Adaptogenic is probably for you. It starts off with someone who buys things from auctions and sells them. He's on the hunt for something, he finds something else. He ends up finding what he believes is a link to a planet which he'll get the big bucks from, but instead what he becomes is incorporated into it as the tide comes in. The tidal planet I really loved. I didn't like the main character, and the story, I mean, who could not see that coming? I mean, it was obvious that he was going to be ripped off. It was obviously that he was being ripped off, that he was being played for a fool. And I don't see how anyone who's essentially a con man wouldn't have seen that. So, didn't love the character. Didn't love the concept, did love the planet. The planet was marvellous. It reminded me of Michael Schwanek's Stations of the Tide a bit, actually. Okay, and finally we have the last story in this collection, number 10, the Gabble. This was basically all about Gabble ducks. It's got two protagonists on this planet. I think he calls it Masada, where the Gabble ducks are originally from, and there's a whole lot of protections on the planet for the different species. We've got one person who's studying Gabble ducks, another one who's studying a different type of species, and they go on this long trip to get samples because no one's ever got a sample of dead Gabble duck, so there's a lot to be found. I can't tell you anything about this story without spoiling it, and it's a great story. I think if you like Neal Asher, or if you like weird notions about other intelligences and what may or may not happen to them, I think this is a story for you. So thank you for bearing with me in this motel in Cairns. I hope I can post this from my phone. If I can't, I'll post it a bit later. Thank you for watching. Read great books because great books are wonderful. Bye.